going on, guys? Junior's Fishing Company with just a standard jig today. I've got a 1/4 ounce VMC or Northland deep V jig, all black. So I'm going to do an all black jig. I really like all black, especially if the bite's tough. I don't know, that's just my opinion, but confidence bait, I guess. It's going to be really just two things. I'm going to do an Arctic goat tail and then just some standard black bucktail with a little bit of flash. So I want to put this goat in because bucktail isn't the most flimsy. It can be if it's really long. If you tie it in really long, it will be. But I'm not really going to do that. So I want my tail to be able to flutter, and so this goat is just so much thinner and wispier. It's going to add a little bit more life to the back of my jig. This is going to be a short jig. It's going to be probably around 4 inches. That's where my bait keeper. That's where my material clip is. I've got that set at about 4 inches. So I just want to line up this Arctic goat so it's a little easier to tie in. And again, I'm just going to do Arctic goat, a couple stacks of deer hair with a little flash in there, and that's going to be it. It's a really simple tie compared to the last couple I've done with the marabou and stuff. Sometimes just that simple deer hair and a little bit of flash, that's really all you need. And the reason I like to tie my own deer hair jigs is because when you buy them, like the mass-produced ones, usually they just take a clump of bucktail and they just slap it right on by the jig head, and they tie it in, and there's no taper to it or anything like that. And the taper is what is going to add some of that life into the bait. I've got a little bit of a empty spot here. I couldn't get this bait keeper off. These deep V jigs, to get the bait keeper off, you got to really use a Dremel for a lot of them because they're really tough to get off. I'm going to increase the amount of hair I use as I work up to the head. The head's going to have the most. I'm going to do 2 stacks of deer, and then I'm going to do a little flash, and then I'm going to put my last stack of deer hair in. This first one is paper thin. I mean, it's just a few hairs, really. And I don't want to go all the way back to where my tail is going to be. I want, again, you want a taper. So you want some of that Arctic goat by itself. And so that looks about good to me. I'll trim these off, just flush, so it'll be a little bit easier to get them down. I'll just do 2 loose wraps. I'm going to get this spun around. I want some flare in this jig, but not yet. So I got this from the top of my tail because I don't need flare here. And this is super thin. If this wasn't black, maybe you still can see through it. But this is just a very minimal amount of deer hair. So I've got plenty of room for my next 2 stacks. I'm going to go right in front of this little bump. That bump really wouldn't be there if I didn't have that bait keeper to worry about. I'm going to make this shorter again because I want to make some taper. It should be. This is going to be really short. You see how much I'm cutting off. Because that's where the life is going to come in this jig. So I can just cord up my thread, and I'm going to go right to about the head. I just want to leave some room for my last little bit. Get that pushed around. I'll have plenty of hair on this one. This one's a little bit thicker, a little bit more than the first one I put in, and that last one's going to be the thickest one. There might be a little life in this hair. Just enough where you get a little bit of flare, but I'm going to put that tinsel down, and that tinsel is going to push it down just a little bit too. So I'm going to get this cinched down, and I'm just holding my hook. If I didn't, you can see how much that hook twists, and that kind of it's just annoying to me. So I just hold it. Obviously you don't have to do this for a lot of those big 6/0 predator hooks, but so I've got some holographic Flashabou. This is this is brown. Just kind of standard. It's just a darker flash. I thought about using black, but this is just the only color I'm going to have in my bait. And I want it not to go all the way back, but pretty far. I'm just going to get that right on the bottom of my jig. Get that twisted around. For some reason in the package, all of this pack of Flashabou is like, must have been sitting on the shelf a while or something, because it just got stuck together. So I'll trim that, and then I'm going to put the rest on the bottom. And my other end should be tapered out. And I'll just measure that out again. About the same. Get that pushed right on top. Try and split my hook. Get it as even as you can. It really doesn't matter a ton. And then I'm just going to cut these ones off. You could fold it back if you want to add just a little bit more flash. It's not a ton, but it's enough where you'll see a difference. I don't like tons of flash. Basically just put deer hair down to hold the flash. Some people, some jigs it's fine. You want a really bright bait, but so this last one I'm going to get right up on my head. I'll cord up my thread, and this should have a lot of life in it. And it's going to be my shortest stack. So I'll go about right here, and I'm going to cut off, not quite this much, but I'm going to cut to about where my head is, because I'm going to end up trimming this with my razor blade. So I want to make sure I have enough in there. I can just catch all of that. And again, there's going to be a ton of life in here, so I'm not going to put too much pressure on it yet. Let me get that spun around. All the way around my hook. And then I can apply that pressure. Make sure that it's all there. Couple stragglers. So when I push down on this, it's really going to flare, but I want to hold these butts, as many as I can, because I don't want those flaring too much when I'm trying to wrap, because I've got black 210 and black hair, and this is kind of just like spinning deer hair almost. I'm just going to work my way up to my head, get as much of it folded back as I can. You can see that one had a lot of life in it, but it's all going to end up folding down anyway. But then I'll work my thread back a little bit, because when I stick that razor blade in, I don't want that thread to be up too far. And then the rest I'll just trim with my scissors, and we'll see how it looks. Alright, so here it is. All black. The little red eye I really like. I really like these black jigs. The big eye with the little bit of red. Little bit of flash in there, just kind of a subtle brown. But a simple deer hair jig. For those tough days. Super thin. It's going to end up, you can kind of see, it's going to end up being a really thin bait. When it gets wet, it'll probably be about like that. But you can see as I let go, it kind of, you can see that taper, and that's exactly what you want. And when it gets back to this little thin, stubby tail, it's going to really flutter quite a bit in the water. But I really, really like these jigs. And even when I'm chipping at it with the razor blade, there's not a single chip in here. If you buy some of those cheaper lead head jigs with just the painted eye, I mean, sometimes half the jig, you know, if you hit it at an angle or something like that, it chips right off. But all black. I got a ton of these 1/8 ounce, 1/4 ounce, even 3/8 ounce, or 1/16 too. The all black. I've read a lot of articles that said, you know, people ask what color works best or what lure works best, and they're like, throw whatever you want as long as it's black. So, Junior's Fishing Company, juniorsfishing.com. See you on the next one.